to the J Wayne Show. Welcome to the Jacob Wayne Show. I believe this is episode 37. This is another solo run. Kellen has been very, very busy in these summer months. Well, I guess summer just started about 2 days ago. It feels like it was summer almost like at the beginning of May. Things are really hot. I wonder why. But you are with me. I am with you. This is a one-on-one exchange. Maybe just a little ASMR to get you behind your ears. Okay, I'll stop doing that. But let's just get into a little bit of news, some updates. This might be a shorter episode. I don't know. Every time I think it's going to be a shorter episode, it tends to extend. But I'd say Vegas bets this is going to be a little bit shorter. What am I drinking today? I have a Tuesday afternoon cocktail. I'm recording at 1:15 p.m. That's a terrible impersonation of a guy in the movie Bronson. And I can't even really remember exactly when he's like shows up in the middle of the film. Bronson gets out of jail for maybe the first time. And he's the guy that's going to make sure that he becomes a fighter. This is Tom Hardy's Bronson, by the way, and not the person he takes the name from. But this dude who's gonna get him to start fighting has a robe on, and he's like, "Would you like a cocktail?" It always really stuck out in my brain. It's disturbing. Speaking of disturbing, I recently watched an episode of Atlanta. Let me look that up real quick. But I just barely started getting into the second season. I just didn't have Hulu set up at my house, so anything that's on there I've been missing. And I was spending the evening at my friend's place down in Denver, and he has Hulu. And so I was like, well, shit, here's an opportunity to catch up on Atlanta. And it's great. Every episode I really enjoyed. But one really stuck out. And that is episode 6 of season 2. And it's called Teddy Perkins. And the character Teddy Perkins is pure insanity. That's all I'm going to say. It's so deliciously creepy and insane. And it stars the great Lakeith Stanfield. He's been popping up in a lot of stuff. He was in that movie I think I've talked about on the podcast, Judas and the Black Messiah. And in this episode, it's a lot of him. Sorry about the phone. Have it turned on volume-wise. But Lakeith's character, Darius, wanders through this episode trying to buy a piano and meets Teddy Perkins. And that's all I'm going to say. Go watch the episode. It's delicious. But Teddy Perkins is a little bit like that guy. A cocktail. He doesn't have a voice like that. He's actually way more up in here. And, the rap music. Yes. Great episode. Watch it. Anyways, new releases. Let's take a look. While I'm looking that up, I'll say that I just got back from Utah. My little vacation home to see everybody post-Pandy. People seem to be doing good. People are kind of getting back into the groove of things. Saw a lot of family. Saw friends. Some are doing better than others. Let's just put it that way. And I'm glad to be back. But it did, as always with vacations, I guess, you get back and it seems like there's this giant list of things to get done. And oh, by the way, this thing changed that you weren't anticipating, and you got to adjust to that. And that's just part of life, though, yeah? So, new releases. There was 2 new tracks from some rappers I enjoy. One was a song called Law of Averages by Vince Staples. He's been one of my favorite newer rappers, although I guess he's been in the game for a while now, and we all know that rap tends to be a young man and woman's game. They have maybe a couple hit albums and just kind of tend to split off into more entrepreneurial things because for whatever reason, people that listen to rap don't seem to enjoy the older perspective as much, which I kind of get. And I think that's changed a little bit over the years. You got things like Run the Jewels and that. Of course, I can't think of other ones. There are other ones. Oh, Jay-Z. There you go. He's not somebody I've ever been that into, but definitely has a lot of respect, and he's an older gentleman. So that being said, Vince Staples' Law of Averages is pretty solid. I'm still digesting it. It's probably not my favorite offering from him. I really love Summertime '06. That's like one of my favorite albums in rap from over the last couple decades. And so he does have kind of a high bar for me personally. Another rapper who has a bit of a high bar for me is Tyler, the Creator. He just released a track called Lumberjack. It's seems to be getting back to basics a little bit, but as soon as I listened to Lumberjack last night, it kind of made me go revisit some Tyler songs that I hadn't listened to in a while, and it's like, I don't know if it holds up that well either. So I don't know if these two are suffering from that getting older issue or not, but sometimes it takes a while to digest things, and we'll see where I land once these full albums come out, or EPs, whatever they end up being. Cherry Bomb is actually a really underrated album to me by Tyler, the Creator. I think a lot of people panned it, from what I understand, and I just think it's great. It's very, very raw, blown out bass sound, and you can just feel the energy on it. Some of the other ones are like a little too sardonic and just detached. Vince Staples, always solid though. Probably liked that one a little bit more than the other. There's apparently this death metal official soundtrack, something weird. There's a song by Health, Taylor Bates, Chino Marino called Anti-Life. I haven't even heard it yet. There's another song, Sodium, by Idols, who just always seem to be churning out new stuff. Zappa, 88, The Last U.S. Show. Frank Zappa, a new release from the God. Once again, haven't listened to that. Excited to. And there's a new song from that metal band Ginger. If you haven't heard of them, that's Jinjer. It's kind of the metal that I don't normally feel in the mood to throw on, but I will say the singer, I'll see if I can look that up real quick. She's very impressive. The first time I heard him, she's a very beautiful woman. And I saw this live video, and she just comes running out on stage, and you're like, all right, she'll have kind of like an angelic, maybe like Flyleaf or what was that one? Evanescence-y kind of vibe. I was ready for that. And then she just comes out like, and I was like, holy shit. And then I thought, well, maybe that's going to be it. But no, she goes right up into the higher pitch singing, and she can do both. So she's very impressive to me. See if we can find her name real quick. Tatiana Shmaluk. Shmaluk? SHMAYLUK. They formed in the Ukraine. So they're a Ukrainian metalcore band. Metalcore, I never quite understood as a subgenre. I'm not sure what that means. If it's just like hardcore, like Hatebreed or something like that. Not totally sure. Is Lamb of God's not metalcore? At least I don't think. But then certainly nu metal isn't metalcore. Maybe it is that Hatebreed, that kind of offshoot from nu metal a bit. I'm not totally sure. Well, those are the new music releases, so we'll move right along here. And we'll get into movies. I watched 3 movies. 2 while I was on this vacation with my buddy Mike. He's a big movie guy, so we definitely had to sneak a couple in. Oh, I suppose 3. This other one I watched partially. I'm going to finish it, but it was yesterday, kind of in this weird transitionary day. I thought I was going to be getting back up to Fort Collins right from the airport, but the buses were a little wonky. So I was like, fuck it, I'll stay in Denver a night, see my good buddies down there. I'm really glad I did that. With the movie news, I did want to say one thing. This isn't entirely a movie news podcast, but when there's something I'm really into, it is the Jacob Wayne Show, and I'll give you a little bit of info on things that I'm excited about. Ari Aster, or Ari Aster, I'm not sure how he likes it pronounced. He's working on a new film, Disappointment Boulevard. His other films were Hereditary, which is one of my favorite horror films of the last 10 years or so. And then he did the one that's certainly intriguing and has seemed to really become a bit of a cult classic already and sparked internet discussion and memery, Midsommar. I liked it, not as much as Hereditary, so he's definitely a director. Whatever he's putting out, I'm in the seat. I'm ready to see it. So Disappointment Boulevard is next one. Casts Amy Ryan, Nathan Lane, Patty Lupone, and Kylie Rogers. I really only know Nathan Lane. He's a great actor. He's very comedic. And it'll be under the A24 banner, which any A24 film is usually pretty interesting. They also have Robert Eggers, The Witch. The Northman is his next one coming up, but he also did The Lighthouse, which was great, but very strange. From what I understand, this film is going to be like a horror comedy. And that sounds pretty interesting. I know that Midsommar definitely had some of its kind of dark comedic moments, but it's definitely still creepy more than anything. And so it'll be interesting to see what he does with that. This film is also starring Joaquin Phoenix, who, weird dude, but amazing actor. I can't knock him on acting one bit. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little, like, exhausted of his weirdness. So I hope he does something that is beyond the Joker thing, or I was never there, and I was never really there, or The Master. It's going to be interesting. I'm excited. Trying to see if I'm seeing any kind of potential release date. Doesn't quite seem like there is one yet, so it's still really in the beginning stages, but keep your eyes open and your ears peeled for that. With that, let's get into the movies I watched. The first movie I watched was one I had never heard of. Let me take a sip real quick. The Highlander Grog, Cafe Ibis. That's one of my eternal loves from my hometown, Cache Valley. Just always would get the Highlander Grog, so went in, got some beans, ground them up as soon as I got here, and it's doing the trick. But Magic. It's a 1978 film, psychological horror and it stars Anthony Hopkins as a 80-year-old looking 30-year-old. It's very weird seeing that motherfucker young. It's like half the enjoyment of the film almost to me is just seeing like a young Hannibal Lecter, because he definitely has some Hannibal vibes in this. You have the great Burgess Meredith. He's like, "You're a bum rock," that guy. But in this, he's an agent. He's Anthony Hopkins' character's agent. Anthony Hopkins' character is Charles Corky Withers, and he's a magician. He does all these card tricks, and it's not really working. There's this weird intro where he's like, seems like he's talking to his father or his magic trainer or something like that. He's like, maybe you should give it up if you don't have the heart to do it, or something like that. I've only seen it once, forgive me. And he takes on a ventriloquist puppet, and he becomes a huge hit. And I guess it becomes too much for Corky, Hopkins' character, and he goes upstate, somewhere like that, out into like more of the woody area, and tries to reconnect with his high school sweetheart, or his high school crush, Ann-Margret. Or in the movie she's Peggy Ann Snow, but Ann-Margret's the actress. And if you don't know her, she's kind of like sexy pinup girl from like some Elvis movies. She's been around for a while. She was in Grumpy Old Men, or in Grumpier Old Men. She's fantastic in this movie. There's a really weird line in it where Anthony Hopkins says to her, "Your breasts belong in the Louvre," as like a sexy little come on, and it's very funny. I don't think that would work as well these days, but it stuck out. It's my favorite line from the movie. "Your breasts belong in the Louvre." Maybe he says tits. I don't know. Either way, the line works. It was directed by Richard Attenborough. If you don't completely remember who that is, that's Mr. DNA. Where did you come from? From Jurassic Park. John Hammond, the owner of the park, in the first one anyway. His brother is David Attenborough, the guy you know from the Planet Earth series. Rest in peace to Richard. David's still around. Anyway, he's a great director. The camera work in the whole thing is wonderful. The music is by Jerry Goldsmith, and it's really great too. It's like really operatic, but it has like a harmonica in it too, which is like a really interesting mix. It's a pretty straightforward 70s psychological horror film, but one review I read, which maybe I can even find it. I forgot I did that last time. I did enjoy that. There is something really great about taking these kind of schlocky or maybe not mundane, but just like predictable B-movie type plots, and then putting really great actors into them. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it's like, oh wow, you really elevated this material. I hear The Invisible Man is like that, a recent one that I still haven't watched, where it's like, yeah, it's an invisible dude stalking a lady, but because of the acting and the filming, it really worked out. Here's one 3-star review on Letterboxd by Zara. He says, "Seeing Anthony Hopkins not old is so fucking weird." He's not wrong. We have 4-star review by Erin. She says, "That man is right. Ann-Margret's tits do belong in a museum." So, it might seem like the film doesn't have a lot of depth, and maybe it doesn't have too much depth, but there's a lot of great little things going on in it. I highly recommend it. I'm going to give it 5 puppet hands. Moving on, that kind of got me and my buddy Mike into an Anthony Hopkins phase. And we jumped onto another one we hadn't seen. We wanted something kind of obscure, weird Anthony Hopkins. We didn't want to do those more drama-filled, perhaps really good Anthony Hopkins films. We wanted strange ones. So we had to go all the way to 1999, as far as I know anyway, and we watched Instinct from 1999. That is a psychological thriller film, not psychological horror. It is directed by John Turteltaub. What else did he do? Wow, okay. He did Three Ninjas, Cool Runnings, so he owned my childhood a little bit. While You Were Sleeping, a romantic comedy I enjoy quite a bit. Did Phenomenon, actually another one I enjoy quite a bit, for even though it's pretty schmaltzy. He did the 2 National Treasure movies. Directed The Sorcerer's Apprentice. I feel like that was like maybe a knockoff of Harry Potter or something. And he did The Meg, which I remember hearing about when it came out. So how about that? Guy has a really interesting filmography. Don't know if I could do a top 10 out of it. But there's some good movies in there. Cool Runnings, I love it to death. While You Were Sleeping, one of my favorite romantic comedies. Phenomenon, fun little concept. Watch John Travolta chew scenery. But Instinct, doesn't really work. I imagine if I was younger, I don't think I would have loved it, but I would have given it like more like, wow, like what a great concept. And it does have a pretty good concept, but it's so schmaltzy and basic when you really get down to it that it just doesn't work. Anthony Hopkins plays an anthropologist, Ethan Powell, who's been missing for years. He was living in the jungle of Uganda's Bwindi impenetrable forests with the mountain gorillas. He's convicted of killing and injuring several supposed wilderness park rangers in East Africa and is sent to prison. And a bright young psychiatrist, Theo Calder, played by Cuba Gooding Jr., tries to find out why he killed them, but becomes entangled in a quest to learn the true history and nature of humankind. So basically, that means Anthony Hopkins throughout the film slowly begins to talk and reveal that, see, we connected with the animals and they're way more loving and forgiving than us humans. We create these boxes for ourselves to live in. You know, society's all a box, and he's in a mental institution, and they clearly try to correlate that, see how cruel they are to the men, and if they just acted like gorillas, everything would be okay. And, you know, there's something to that, but definitely an oversimplification. Apparently, the movie is loosely inspired by Ishmael, a novel by Daniel Quinn, who I hadn't heard of it. And its working title was Ishmael. But it's boring. It falls apart. Probably the most entertaining part is Anthony Hopkins scuttling along in an airport and just knocking people over. And like just running and just getting away from guard after guard. He seems to have like supernatural strength. The movie also has Moira Teresa Tierney. She was in ER and she was the mom in Liar Liar. A lovely woman. Always had a bit of a little crush on her, so it was nice to see her in something. Let's read a review for Instinct, a review or two. Take a sip while I'm finding a good one. All right, here's a good one by Jenna Ipkar. She gave it 1.5 stars. Dude, please. Jane Goodall did this shit for decades and she never killed nobody. You ever notice how Anthony Hopkins either makes or tanks a film? I've also never heard a sappier soundtrack in my life when this absolutely Silence of the Lambs 90s eco-conscious One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest Shawshank movie about guerrilla redemption. Fast forward to the last 15 minutes to listen to Cuba's tear-filled speech that's so insanely undeserved, it transcends the entire film into cinematic perfection. Huh. Good review. There's more, but I'll end it there. Yeah, that was one part that stuck out to me too, is when the music is just all flourishes and really going for it, and Anthony Hopkins is just trudging from one building to another in Africa. And you're like, the music's really trying to convince you, like, this is beautiful. This is a beautiful place. And it's like, yeah, I know it is. Like, calm down. And that's Danny Elfman. So the man knows his flourishes. It just maybe doesn't fit this movie. Here's another one. 2-star review by Anders. More like Silence of the Gorillas. This is one of those cases where the movie is good, but I just didn't like it. It's just spoon-fed me with morality throughout. But I'll forever love Moira Tierney. So will I. Good job, Anders. You're right. Silence of the Gorillas. And one more review by Kat. 3.5 stars. Monkey good, people bad. You're right, Kat. Monkey good. So let's move on to the third film, which I didn't finish because I'm not going to lie. It's a little too schmaltzy for me. It is good, but I just wasn't in the mood for schmaltz. I ended up switching over to Atlanta, and that's where I started watching that. But I started A League of Their Own. And I know it's a classic and people love it. There's no crying in baseball! That's the big line, right? By Tom Hanks. I didn't even get to that line. It is a 1992 American sports comedy drama film that tells a fictionalized account of the real-life All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, AAGPBL. It's directed by Penny Marshall, and if you don't know Penny Marshall, let's go over her filmography a little bit. She has some great ones, but they are probably pretty schmaltzy. She did Hocus Pocus, Get Shorty. That was as an actress. My bad. As a director. Oh, she did Big. 80s classic right there. Who doesn't know Big? She did Renaissance Man. I think that's an underrated movie with Danny DeVito. Watched that in a Shakespeare class I took, of all places. That was in high school, though, so one of those days where the teachers maybe hung over, but she wouldn't have been hung over. She was pretty Mormon. This is a total tangent. I remember in that class, that teacher spent this long-winded diatribe about how the fall of Rome was due to homosexuality. And I ended up really fighting her on that. I was like, what the fuck are you... Like, just basically me being like, what the fuck are you talking about? And she's just like, oh. Like, she just didn't anticipate people to argue with her. I guess she thought it was going to be a bunch of Mormons in there. How dare a heathen come into this Shakespeare class? Yeah, it was a weird class. Got hit in the head with a textbook because another movie was coming out around then. It was Underworld, that Lycans versus Vampire movie. Werewolves versus vampires. And this goth girl, who shall remain nameless, but she was in my little inner circle a bit. She asked me, "Who are you? Which team are you? Are you team vampire or team werewolf?" This is pre Twilight. And I'm like, I gotta go werewolf. And she smacked me in the head with the textbook. So yeah, fuck vampires. All right, I don't mean it. I like vampires too, but goddamn, take it easy. I didn't know they were at war that intensely. Gagothina. I don't know a good goth girl name, but we're going to go with Gagothina because I can't say her real name. Yeah, we watched Renaissance Man, directed by Penny Marshall. Her last movie was Riding in Cars with Boys. I heard that was pretty solid. but maybe didn't make as much money, so she quit directing. She was married to Rob Reiner at one point, another great director. And unfortunately, she passed away in 2018. I do remember that. That was sad. But A League of Their Own could be her most well-known movie. I don't know. Big is probably her most well-known movie. But it does have a great cast. They're all great in it. Tom Hanks, Gina Davis, Madonna, Rosie O'Donnell, Lori Petty. It also has John Lovitz, the critic, who's also he's an asshole through the whole movie, or at least the bit of the movie I watched. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You can already picture the movie in your head. It's during World War II. A lot of the men go off to fight the war. They're trying to figure out how to keep baseball going, so they start a women's league. And they're like, well, women playing baseball, they better wear skirts. So it's that kind of a thing. It's PG. It's very safe. But it is good. I am going to finish it. Just wasn't feeling it yesterday. I would say it was interesting as I was laying there watching. After they recruit Dottie and Kit, I think that's their names. That's Gina Davis and Lori Petty, I believe. They travel to Fort Collins, Colorado to get their next baseball player. And I was like, oh, hey, that's where I'm heading tonight. And that was yesterday. So, yesterday. As you can tell, the movie didn't leave too much of an impression upon me other than pretty good comedic acting, and it's heartwarming. Kept going off on other tangents with this one, and yeah, needed to move on, I suppose. But I'll give you an update. I'll let you know if like the second half of it really, brings it all together, and I'm like, oh wow, I really love this movie. With that, let's get into some video game stuff. Let's see here. Got to play around on a PS5. Not very much. But, I gotta find the name of the game because I mix it up with the game Sekiro, which is a great game, but very difficult. This one seems like an easier version, maybe a little more Assassin's Creed-esque. Ghosts of Tsushima. Yeah, my buddy Mike showed me a little bit of that on his PS5, and it's a very beautiful game. It has the Kurosawa mode where you can go into black and white, like those old samurai films, and it looks great. Didn't play it, just watched him play it, but I'm excited to try that one out. Other than that, the PS5 didn't stand out as anything too revolutionary from a PS4. Sure, it's nicer. Saw a little bit of the Xbox. What are they? The Xbox One now or something like that? Whatever the new one is. I like the Xbox design better than the PS5 design. It's just this little box. It's like, oh, hey, look at that. The PS5 is a little wonky and awkward. I'm excited for them to, bring that down a notch. Make it smaller. But a shout out to Super Mario 64, which I suppose, thanks to Collider.com and an article written by Marco Vito Odo, has its 25-year anniversary today. Or at least this week. And I tell you, this article makes a lot of good points. But this video game was revolutionary, and sometimes people forget. There was definitely 3D platformer games before this game, but this was the one that was truly accessible to the masses. I remember at the time, a little kid, a lot of friends were getting the 64 the year it came out. And I mean, they came out with a great selection of games. They had Star Fox 64, Mario 64, Shadows of the Empire, a great Star Wars game that maybe a lot don't know about. Wave Race. Trying to think what some of the others were. That Turok might have been a little later, but anyway. Mario 64. Zelda Ocarina of Time really refined it, and that is still one of my favorite games of all time. But Super Mario 64, what this article really pointed out to me was how revolutionary the jumping was in it. Sure, you'd had like 2D side scroller games where you could jump off of walls and stuff, do double jumps and things like that, but this in a 3D world really refined jumps and flips and jumping from wall to wall to wall to wall to wall. Yeah, I don't know. It was all kinds. Like, he points out that running to make your jump go farther, like, that wasn't totally a thing before this game. It probably existed, but yeah, it was so revolutionary. It was a beautiful world, mysterious, all the little things you had to do to find the stars. And out of all the Marios that are made, it's definitely got to be, I would say, top 3. It has to be, because you can feel the influence of Mario 64 on all the next Mario games, and they all try to kind of recapture this one while still doing new adventurous stuff. I mean, I really loved Mario Galaxy because of the gravity mechanics, but I'd be lying if I said that, you know, this one was like just mind-blowing at the time. So happy anniversary to Super Mario 64. I was always convinced that after you got all the stars, and if you snuck up to a certain part of the castle at the right time, because you could meet Yoshi, but if you snuck up there at the right time, you could switch and become Luigi. That was always a rumor that went around, and I would love it if that was actually a thing. But anyways, that's enough for video games right now. Still trying to get my way through Valheim, barely starting out Ni no Kuni 2. Don't have enough to say about that yet. So I'll talk about that more with Kellen when he comes back. With that, I figured do a little bit of interesting political news, and it's not really politics as much as the news media. But according to an article by the New York Times, which is quite reputable, the title to the article is Tucker Carlson Calls Journalists Animals. He's also their best source. And we all know Tucker Carlson is the racist piece of shit on Fox News, who, unfortunately, a lot of our parents listen to as their source of facts and information. But apparently, off camera, he's very divulgent of information. He was one of the dudes that would spill the beans on a lot of Donald Trump's administration's inner workings and some of Donald Trump's personal stuff when he was in the White House. And he would dish this information to liberal reporters. And he'd even dish out information about himself and his show. And then he'd turn right around and say, "Oh, geez, this liberal media, they're a bunch of pieces of shit, am I right?" So I did find that very interesting, and that really sums up the news media to me. If you can't see by now that, and believe me, I'm not equating the two as equal, because I still just, there's no way Fox News is equal with MSNBC and CNN. Fox News is the epitome of bullshit. Maybe there's OAN, but they're not big enough to really give that credit to. And they're just trying to be the more far-right version of Fox News. Fox News is the king of bullshit. I believe Jon Stewart used to define it as bullshit mountain. And But that is the whole cycle. MSNBC and CNN are certainly full of shit themselves. None of them are great places to get your news. I'd say New York Times is a solid source, but diversify, as we've talked about on this podcast. But this goes to show you, Tucker Carlson, he's going to give them all the information they need to report on him so he can bitch about them reporting on him. It's a cycle. They need the conflict. They need the drama to keep you watching. And even me doing this is playing into it a little bit. So I'll just leave you with that. Tucker Carlson is a piece of shit who's lying to you. And he's thriving off of all of this. He is not a savior. He is not the one spitting the truth while all the other ones are lying. He's lying. He's a liar. Okay. With that, I saw this one article. The sun is stranger than astrophysicists imagined. The picture's pretty cool. Maybe I'll save the picture and that'll be the image for this podcast. It's from a website I don't fully trust for science news, though. It's getpocket.com. They don't seem too reputable. But let me read a little bit of this to you and we'll discuss a bit. A decade's worth of telescope observations of the sun have revealed a startling mystery. Gamma rays. Not gamma pause. Give us a listen on Spotify. The highest frequency waves of light radiate from our nearest star 7 times more abundantly than expected. Stranger still, despite this extreme excess of gamma rays overall, a narrow bandwidth of frequencies is curiously absent. The surplus light, the gap in the spectrum, and other surprises about the solar gamma ray signal potentially point to unknown features of the sun's magnetic field or more exotic physics. It's amazing that we were so spectacularly wrong about something we should understand really well. The sun, said Brian Fields, a particle astrophysicist at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. The unexpected signal has emerged in data from the Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope, a NASA observatory that scans the sky from its outpost in low Earth orbit. As more Fermi data have accrued, revealing the spectrum of gamma rays coming from the sun in ever greater detail, the puzzles have only proliferated. We just keep finding surprising things, said Anika Peter of Ohio State University, a co-author of a recent white paper summarizing several years of findings about the solar gamma ray signal. What's a white paper? As opposed to the yellow legal pads? It's definitely the most surprising thing I've ever worked on, said Anika. Not only is the gamma ray signal far stronger than the decades-old theory predicts, it also extends to much higher frequencies than predicted, and it inexplicably varies across the face of the sun and throughout the 11-year solar cycle. This goes on. Suppose not too thrilling. But gamma rays, there is this interesting theory, and I'm going to slaughter it. It's one of those fun, when you're high, laying on your couch, listening to Pink Floyd kind of thoughts. But some people theorize that gamma rays are what rapidly evolved our primate ancestors and created humans. Or at least made us, our ancestors, or whatever the link is, self-aware because of its effect on the mind. A little out there, but I tell you, it makes a lot more sense than the Earth being created in 7 days. So I'll leave you with that. The title of this episode: how about we do Tuesday cocktails and gamma rays? Huh? Yeah. Let's check the time. Not too shabby. A little over 44 minutes. It's longer than I expected, I'll be honest. So with that, I will leave you. Hopefully we got Kellen back for the next one. We hopefully do have some more guests coming up. Talk to a couple that are interested in coming on. We just got to find the right time, right equipment, and right subjects. So with that, I will leave you. I am your Jacob Wayne, and you have a lovely rest of your first week of summer. Bye-bye.